If you're here, you're likely an analytical thinker. You deal in logic, systems, and outcomes. And because of that, emotional intelligence probably feels like trying to put a square peg into a round hole. Traditional leadership advice tells us that you have to change who you are. It tells us that we have to feel more. And frankly, that feels really inauthentic. I'm not here to turn you into a poet. I'm here to tell you that you don't need to abandon your logic to be a great leader. In fact, your analytical mind is your greatest asset. We're going to stop treating emotions like they're messy distractions, and we're going to start looking at them like data, inputs into your logical system that you can diagnose, understand, and manage. Now, I didn't do that by guessing. I did it by building a system, the system that I call the leadership equation. I realized that most leaders believe they have to choose between people or performance. I think that's a false choice. I believe in and thinking. You can have high performance and a healthy culture. So let's take a look at the reality that leaders are facing today. In high growth environments, we promote experts into leadership, but then we abandon them to figure it out on their own. You get promoted because you're a high performer, but leading people requires a completely different skill set. Without those skills, even the most brilliant experts leaves a trail of people or human collateral damage in their wake. I've seen it happen. Leaders who deliver results, but burn out their teams. Senior leaders often have plausible deniability. They see the results, so they ignore the whispers in the hallway until top talent starts walking out the door. Innovation requires psychological safety. If your team is afraid to fail or afraid of you, they're not going to innovate. So if you really want to lead in this era, you have to move beyond just your subject matter expertise. Now, this is where we shift your perspective. I want you to stop seeing emotions as soft skills and start seeing them as data points. Think of me as a holistic doctor for your organization. If a patient has a fever, you don't ignore it. The fever is a symptom of an underlying root cause. Think about emotional responses like anxiety, silence, friction. All of these are symptoms. They're leading indicators that something in the human system is broken. Now, when a top performer suddenly goes quiet in meetings, that's a data point. When a team is cynical about a new project, that's a data point. If you ignore this data, you're making decisions blindly. You're treating the symptoms, not the root cause. And as any good engineer knows, if you don't fix the root cause, that fire is going to ignite somewhere else. So let's translate EQ into a framework that works for the analytical mind. So if we stop for a moment and think about pattern recognition, you use it to troubleshoot complex problems, and you can use it to spot patterns in your team's behavior. If you think about how they respond with their emotions, right? This is cause and effect. X happened, which caused Y to happen as a result. And then you think about emotional state management. This is about regulation, keeping the system stable. So in the leadership equation, we take this a step further. We move from emotional intelligence, or EQ, to relational intelligence, or RQ. EQ is all about awareness, knowing how someone feels, and being self-aware, knowing how you feel. RQ is about action. It's the skill of navigating the invisible org chart and the complex human dynamics that are required in order to actually get work done in today's organizations. So this is the core architecture. You have self-awareness and self-management. You have social awareness and relationship management. For the analytical leader, the left brain thinker, traditional training tries to force you to operate entirely in your right brain. It tells you to lead with your feelings. My philosophy, don't fight a leader's natural strengths, amplify them. We're going to use your analytical intelligence to process relational data. We call this integrated intelligence. It's using your whole brain to lead. So let's get practical. How does a high AQ leader handle a high emotion situation without feeling inauthentic? You treat it like a root cause analysis. Think about it like this. Logic without empathy creates a disconnect, but you can use a logical process to get to empathy. So if you think about it in terms of troubleshooting a complex problem, the first thing you're going to do is identify the symptom. What's the specific behavior that you're seeing from your team? Then you're going to think about the severity. How big is the impact of that behavior? Think again about cause and effect. Look for patterns. Is this something that's a one-time thing, or has it been a recurring issue? Then you would think about running a diagnostic. So in this case, you'd ask direct but respectful questions. I noticed that you were really quiet in the meeting today. Is something on your mind? Is there a disconnect with what we're talking about for the project? This isn't about becoming a therapist. It's about diagnosing the human system with the same rigor that you apply to other complex problems. Let me give you a real life example from my book, Born a Statistic, Built to be a Leader. We're going to talk about Frank. Frank was a construction foreman. He was what you would call a classic analytical leader. He saw his electrical team standing around not working. Now, the old Frank would have reacted to the symptom. He would have yelled at them for being lazy. But Frank used this diagnostic process and he asked a question. He found out that they were stalled because the blueprints were wrong. He fixed the blueprints, which was the root cause, and the team got back to work. He didn't have to fake empathy. He used his analytical skills to solve the logistical problem, which resulted in his team feeling supported. This is integrated intelligence in action. So in any system, you need guardrails. So these guardrails help to guide your behavior when you or your team is triggered. So the first and most important thing is to recognize the trigger. Acknowledge that actual data. This is what happened that triggered the emotion. Pause and reflect. Don't automatically react to the situation. The first thing you need to do is to get additional context. Find out context from your team and any other stakeholder who might be involved. Then you need to practice empathy. Now, it's not about agreeing with what everyone has to say. It's about understanding the experience of the person. This stops you from reacting emotionally. It keeps you from becoming the leader who adds chaos to the system instead of one that calms it down. So why does this matter to a business? Because it helps you to make better decisions. I worked with a leader named Elena. She was a high RQ leader. She had a gut feeling that a major client was going to leave. Her CEO dismissed it because the data dashboard looked green. But Elena used integrated intelligence. She took that gut feeling, her intuition, and made a hypothesis. She looked for the data to prove it. She found that feature adoption had dropped to 0 for this client. That intuition that she had, she turned it into a data-backed argument. She saved a multi-million-dollar account, not because she was emotional, but because she integrated her intuition with logic. That is the leadership equation way. So this is the framework that I want you to walk away with. We're combining awareness and management with technical skills. We're using skill stacking. We aren't throwing away your analytical brain. We're stacking relational skills on top of your analytical strengths to make you a force multiplier. We're building scaffolding for you to operate within. This allows you to scale your leadership so you aren't just a firefighter running from crisis to crisis. Instead, you become the conductor of a beautiful orchestra. The leaders who win in this era are the ones who can lead with their whole brains. You have the logic, you have the analytical prowess. Now it's time to unlock the data hidden in human dynamics. If you're ready to stop firefighting and start leading for this era with your whole brain, let's build a system that works for you and your unique environment. Hit the like button or drop a comment below, and let's talk about using your analytical brain to process emotional intelligence.